Last week, I got 43 voicemails from my family, people who hadn't spoken to me in 8 years. Not one of them said, "I'm sorry." Every single one said the same thing: "Hey, we need to talk." And that's when I realized they didn't miss me. They needed something from me. My name is Marcus Hale. I'm 29 years old now, living in Chicago, working a job I built from the ground up. The kind of life nobody in my past ever thought I'd have. But a week ago, I sat alone in my apartment, staring at my phone while it kept lighting up over and over again with calls, texts, and voicemails from people I hadn't heard from in nearly 8 years. Family, blood, people who once said I was the problem, the unstable one, the one who couldn't be trusted. I let every call go to voicemail. Then I sat there and listened to all of them, one by one. 43 messages in total. And not a single one of them said, "We are sorry." Not one asked how I'd been or if I was okay. Every single one started the same way. Like they had rehearsed it, like it was a script they all agreed on. "Hey Marcus, we need to talk." And sitting there listening to that, I realized something that took me years to understand. They didn't miss me. They missed access to me. But to really understand why those words meant nothing to me, you gotta go back to where it all started. Because people don't just cut off their entire family for no reason. Something breaks first. Something deep enough that you can't glue it back together, no matter how hard you try. I grew up in a small town in Indiana. The kind of place where everyone knows your name but nobody really knows you. On the outside, my family looked perfect. My dad worked hard. My mom kept everything together. My older brother Jason was the star of everything he touched. And my younger sister Lily was the sweet one everybody adored. And then there was me. I wasn't loud. I wasn't popular. I wasn't what they expected. I liked computers, systems, figuring out how things worked. I kept to myself, not because I didn't care, but because I never really felt like I belonged in that house. And in my family, if you didn't fit the image, you became the problem. It wasn't something they said outright at first. It was little things. Comments. Comparisons. The constant reminder that I wasn't measuring up. "Why can't you be more like Jason?" That line came up so many times it started to feel like background noise, like something permanently playing in my head. Over time, I stopped trying to prove myself because no matter what I did, it was never enough. The only person who ever saw me differently was my grandfather. He didn't care about grades or popularity or how I compared to anyone else. He used to sit with me in his garage, just talking about life, about choices, about how sometimes the strongest thing you can do is walk away from what's hurting you. A few months before he passed, he called me over one afternoon and handed me an envelope. Inside were documents for a small trust he had set aside for me. It wasn't millions or anything crazy, but it was enough to change my life if I used it right. He looked me in the eye and told me, "This is yours. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise." I didn't tell anyone about it. Something in me just knew it was safer that way. But secrets don't stay hidden forever, especially not in a house like mine. One evening, I came home from work and found my mom sitting at the kitchen table with that envelope open in front of her. She had gone through my things. No apology, no hesitation. She just looked at me and asked what it was. So I told her. And the moment I did, everything changed. It wasn't shock on her face. It was calculation. Within days, the conversation started shifting. Suddenly, my brother needed help with college expenses. My dad had financial pressure. My mom started talking about family responsibilities, about how we all needed to support each other. And somehow, without anyone saying it directly at first, that money became something they believed belonged to all of us. But it didn't. It was mine. And for the first time in my life, I said no. That's when the story about me started to change. At first, it was subtle. My mom telling relatives I'd been acting different lately, that I seemed stressed, that she was worried about me. Then it got bigger. Family members started looking at me differently, asking questions that didn't feel like concern, more like confirmation of something they had already decided was true. And then came the night that ended everything. It was my mom's birthday dinner. Everyone was there. Halfway through the night, she stood up and started, talking about me in front of everyone like I wasn't even in the room. She said I'd been acting unstable, that I was making irrational decisions, that she didn't know how to help me anymore. And I sat there, looking around at all those faces, waiting for someone to say something, to question it, to ask me what was actually going on. But nobody did. Not my dad. Not my brother. Not anyone. In that moment, something inside me just shut off. I didn't argue. I didn't defend myself. I didn't try to fix it. I just stood up, walked to my room, packed a bag with whatever I could carry, grabbed the little cash I had, and left. No dramatic goodbye, no yelling, no slammed door. Just silence. I caught a late-night bus out of town with no real plan. Just a one-way ticket as far as I could afford. I ended up in Chicago because it was the last stop my money could get me to. Those first few months were rough in ways I can't even fully explain. Sleeping on couches, working whatever jobs I could find, barely getting by. There were nights I thought about going back. Nights where I wondered if maybe they were right about me. But every time I thought about that dinner, about how easily they turned on me, I kept going. Eventually, I landed a basic job at a small logistics company. Entry-level work. Nothing special. But I noticed things. I saw patterns in the system, inefficiencies nobody else seemed to care about. So I started fixing them, not because anyone asked me to, but because I couldn't ignore it. One day my manager noticed and asked who had made the changes. I told him I did. He asked why, and I said because it needed to be done. That was the first time in my life someone looked at me like I wasn't a problem to be fixed, but a solution. That moment changed everything. I started moving up, learning more, taking on more responsibility. I worked harder than I ever had. Not to prove something to anyone else, but to make sure I never felt powerless again. Years passed. I built a life. Not perfect, but real. Stable. Mine. And I didn't look back. I didn't check on them, didn't reach out, didn't try to reconnect. I let that part of my life stay exactly where it was. Until last week. When that article came out with my name and my face and my job title, everything changed. Because suddenly, the same people who hadn't spoken to me in 8 years remembered I existed. The calls came flooding in. The messages stacked up. And every single one of them had the same energy. Not regret. Not accountability. Just need. And sitting there listening to all of it, I realized something clear as day. They weren't reaching out because they cared. They were reaching out because they saw something they could benefit from. Just like before. And that's when I understood that nothing had really changed. Not them. Not the way they saw me. The only thing that changed was me. So I made a decision. I didn't respond. Not to a single message. I blocked every number, every contact, every possible way they could reach me. Not out of anger, not out of revenge, but out of respect for the life I built without them. Because the truth is, sometimes the hardest thing isn't walking away. It's staying away when they come back acting like nothing happened. But I remember. I remember exactly who I was to them when I had nothing. And I'm not going back to that version of my life. Just because they suddenly see value in me now. Some doors don't need to be reopened. Some chapters are better left closed. And for me, that door is staying shut.